Good morning. Welcome to another D-Link webinar. We're pleased to join you today. We'll be going through our switching portfolio today. As I always say, I always introduce these webinars and I say we've got a lot of slides to get through. Today, we've got a lot of slides to get through. So basically, we're going to be going through each range of D-Link switch, what they're best used for, what the differences between each of the ranges are, and just giving you a full overview of everything switching when it comes to D-Link. With me today, as usual, I've got our channel account manager, Mark Carty.
Good morning, all.
Mark's here for his switching expertise, and Phil Huang, who is our product expert, BDM, FAE, and insert job acronym here.
Hello, everybody.
Okay. So just a quick slide. D-Link switching and network management. We basically try and offer a switch for every solution, every business, every size, all the way down from your enterprise company all the way down to a small office, home office type environment. So we're starting off with the data center switches and moving all the way down to a 5-port plastic model. So to break the mold of how we usually do these presentations, we normally start small and then get bigger as we go along. But today we're going to start at the very top. So we're going to introduce the data center switches first, move down through aggregation, move through edge switching, and then move down into the more unmanaged switches at the end. So I'm going to hand over to Phil, who's going to start and just do a quick introduction on the DQS 5000 switch.
I think Alan sort of really dropped us down, dropped us at the deep end at the start of this webinar. I think one of the things to mention quickly about D-Link and switches is that it's one of the traditions where D-Link sort of started. We really started as a company, and we have one of the most extensive range of network switches in the industry.
Hence the webinar.
Yeah. I mean, as Alan mentioned, this ranges across fully managed switches to unmanaged switches, and goes all the way from 100 gigabit switches down to the original fast Ethernet. What you see on screen at the moment is basically, I think at the moment one of our highest end switches. This DQS 5000 56ZS is very much targeted at, as you can see, micro data centers and also enterprises that may require very high performance core switches. This switch actually works on the open network install environment, which allows you to install various choices of network operating systems. Ours ship with Sonic software for open networking in the cloud. And what comes on top of already a very high performance switch that supports, we're talking about, I think if I remember correctly, 48 25 gig ports on top of
48 25 8 100 gig ports as well.
Yeah, and 8 100 gig QSFP plus ports, and the 100 gig QSFP plus ports can be set up to do very fancy functions such as multi-link link aggregation across multiple switches to provide additional bandwidth and also redundancy across various switches.
Nice.
What else I can say about this?
No, but if that's all we've
yeah, I mean, so
to go
aside from that, obviously these switches are also designed with a bunch of redundancy functions when it comes to things like power supplies and fans, and that characteristics does run across also the other core switches that we'll be introducing later on.
Yeah, we'll be talking about transceivers and redundant power supplies right at the end of the presentation. But Mark, you got anything to add, or should we move on here, because this is a real?
I think we can move on, but if there's any questions that pop up around this type of product or anything else in the range, I mean, we're quite happy to get involved.
Yeah,
we're quite happy to talk to any person around that.
So everybody can get a copy of the presentation. It should be delivered by PDF via email to see these full details on everything that we've got on. So that this is just a look at a fuller look at the capabilities of each one. You've got your layer 3 functionings, you've got your layer 2, your management, and as Phil said, preloaded with Sonic, etc. So just a little bit more of a breakdown of the functionality of the switch there.
You will see the repetition of these advanced layer 3 protocols throughout the next few slides.
Yes,
it's basically industry standard routing protocols that you would expect from high-end switches of this class.
So moving on to core switches. So we're looking at a few ranges in our core switch range. So we've got the DGS 3630 range. We have the DXS 3410 and the DXS 3610 range. I won't go into the differences between those. We'll leave that for when we look at each one as we go across. But what you've got here is a number of switches, copper switches that offer up to 10 gig speeds at intervals of 1, 2.5 and 5 gigabits, and then moving on to the highest level fiber switches, which offer up to 100 gig transfer rates. So if we move into the first section here, we'll start off with the DGS 3630s. Now, these have been around for a while, and I know that Mark sold a fair few of these, so we're gonna hand over to Mark.
Yeah, these are the DGS 3630 range are 1 gigabit layer 3 stackable managed products. You can stack, depending on the variant of them, but up to about 9 switches. We've got non-PoE and PoE options within the range, and these will sit in the core of the network and quite happily manage and be the heart of any network out there. So these will be the core, the heart, the beating heart of a network, and deliver that that full feature set across your entire network. If you're looking for PoE options, we've got 24 and 48 port variants of that, and then to round out the 3630 series, we've got a 24 port fiber option, so it's the 28SC at the bottom of the page. These devices have some more advanced features on there, like OSPF. There are different image licenses that can be purchased for them, so if you need an MPLS image, essentially they're top-end products designed to sort of manage and to give your network the flexibility and the management options out there.
Okay. 3410s. What's the difference here, Phil? What's because we've moved from the DGS to the DXS.
Yeah, you can see the prefix. I think the way that D-Link names the product names, DGS usually stands for gigabit, and X usually stands for the 10 gig. So both of the
the Roman numeral 10. Yeah. Gotcha.
Thank you, Alan. so both the DXS 3410 and 3610, that the main port and speed is 10 gigabit, as you can see over here, and this series is supported by the 25 gig uplinks, whereas the other ones is supported by 100 gig uplinks. Similar to the DGS 3610, these support physical stacking to provide redundancy. And again, similar to, as I mentioned, the advanced routing and support on these products, right. they do have very, very compatible and also complementary functions across the range. If you do move on, you will see that the DXS 3610 on top of the I guess the layer 2 routing and the main layer 3 protocols, you have the more advanced layer 3 routing protocols such as MPLS that Mark mentioned earlier, and they all do provide all these additional redundancy supports on top of the routing protocols. And when it comes to physical support for power supplies and also fans.
Yeah, and 100 gigabit uplinks on these ones as well, as you mentioned. So you've got a massive stacking bandwidth there. Noticeable that the others were 9, and you can physically stack 12 of these in a pile. So there's almost enough there to go back to the future with that amount of power flowing through your system there. So that's core switches done, and we move on to the aggregation layer. So the aggregation layer will sit underneath your core switch or your data center switch, and these are sort of the whereas the other ones will power the network. These are the ones that will be very important in making sure that you're getting that power to the edge from the core in the best way possible.
I mean, the great thing about aggregation switches is to immensely increase the number of ports and the connections that you have. So you have here very high density switches that allow you to aggregate your network so that when it goes to the edge, you can increase
so much power to the edge,
so many more port numbers, but at the same time staying in control of your network.
So we have here the DGS 3130 series, the DMS 3130 series, and the DXS. So the M in this case stands for multi-gig, and the X stands for 10. So there isn't quite the same level of power as at the core, but that's what you'd expect from an aggregation layer switch. So if we move on from this slide and we start off with the DGS 3130s.
Yeah, so these are 1 gigabit layer 3 stackable managed switches. They come in different options. So on the right there, we can see the 24 and 48 port variants. We can see the PoE options there, the 30PS and the 54PS variants. And then we've got fiber options. So we've got 1 gigabit, 1 gigabit SFP options. All of these switches come with 2 10 gigabit Ethernet ports, as well as 4 10 gigabit SFPs. They all work independently from each other, and it just means that it gives you a lot of flexibility for additional links. So if you're connecting or stacking them together, you've still got extra 10 gigabit capacity there to push towards other switches or other devices that may need this. They've got some very powerful layer 3 options on there, so things like OSPF, VRRP built into the device. They can do all your routing. These are very good switches, and they can be used within larger networks. Imagine or think of things like larger schools and larger businesses, and they're cost effective as well.
Yeah, I mean, the great thing about the 3130 compared to the DGS 3630 that some of you might have noticed that in terms of these traditionally entry level fully managed switches, they've come very, very long way, and the DGS 3130 does bring a lot of value when it comes to the functionality that it provides when especially comparing to I guess the slightly older generation DGS 3630. What Mark mentioned that was highlighted that was great is before in the past you did get these combo ports where you have to compromise between the copper and the fiber ports. I'd have to choose one or the other. With this series is that you don't have to compromise. You basically get I guess 2 additional 10 gig ports on top of the usual 4 to give you 6 10 gig ports. Nice. With the 2 different mediums that you're allowed to use to, and again the layer 3 functionalities for most applications it's more than adequate without you having to go for the higher end.
Okay, DMS 3130, a newer range that we've added. So there's only a couple of switches in this range at the moment.
Yeah, these are the 2.5 versions of these 2.5 layer 3 stackable managed versions. As Alan mentioned, we've only got the 24 port versions on there. So the DMS 30T, for example, has got 24 2.5 gigabit ports, but it's got more 25 gigabit SFPs on there. The nice. PoE option or the PoE variant on there can deliver 16 2.5 gigabit PoE ports, but also there is 8 5 gigabit PoE options. So if you're looking at things like Wi-Fi 6 or Wi-Fi 7 in this case, you can plug straight into the switch. But these have got enhanced or better PoE budgets on there, so you can get, I believe, standardly out of the box 740 watts, but you can increase that if you need to with RPS.
Is that out of the box, or is that with the RPS?
I will double check.
I think it might be 370 and 740s with the RPS, but
that's the usual configuration with them.
That's right.
With our PoE switches.
Yeah.
What one thing to highlight is that before in the past, when it comes to the cost of adding PoE onto aggregation switches, it could be a bit prohibitive. But what we do see is because of the PoE devices and application becoming more and more popular, we do have customers that do look forward to that extra control and manageability to connect directly PoE devices onto switches in the aggregation there.
Yeah. So just to come back on that PoE point there, 740 is the standard, and with dual power supplies you can get up to 960 watts. So you can get some serious power out of this base.
Yeah, it does support the PoE++, so the 802.3 BT standard.
Yep.
So that means there's a lot of power through a port that you can get, and you can power larger devices on there, whether it's larger CCTV cameras with heating elements or other options that are needed. But like the DGS 3130 series, the DMS also has the layer 3 routing protocols, and they're in the bottom left of the screen, and it will support things like the OSPF, RIP, as well as some of the other routing functions that you may need.
Fantastic. DXS 3130. So the most powerful range that we've got for aggregation. Again, only 3 models in the series, but you could see more coming in the future. Maybe some larger options coming out in the future, more in the 52 sort of port range.
So these are the 10 gigabit versions of the 3130 series. That again, they're layer 3 stackable switches. At the minute, we're only offering 24 port versions of them, with the exception of the 32S but below. But these are 10 gigabit PoE powerful switches, and again, if you need that layer 3 manageability, if you need things like some of the routing protocols as mentioned in the last 2 slides there, or last 2 points, you've got that in a 10 gigabit format. The great thing about all of the switches that have just been mentioned, so DMS 3130, the DXS 3130, and the DGS 3130s, is they all have things like web-based GUIs. They all can be managed by a command line interface, the CLI, that depending on your management preference or how you want to manage it, can be a simple process to do that. The last 3 switches also have things like surge protection, protecting other devices in the network if there is a surge within the power on there. And they will be added at some point in the near future to the new Nucleus Unity management platform, but we'll hit that on a different webinar.
Coming soon.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at all the different port speeds, when it comes to network design, I think one of the things to get across is that because of the different variety of different LAN port speeds and also the uplink port speeds. You can have the ability and also the flexibility to design your network to minimize any bottlenecks on your network using the various different 25 gig, 100 gig, 2.5 gig, 10 gig ports on all the switches that Dealing offer, from managed smart and also unmanaged that you will see a bit later on in the webinar.
Perfect. So moving on to edge switches, as you can well imagine, edge switches are at the edge of your network. That's why they're named so, given that appropriate title. So what we're going to be looking at mainly here now, what we're leaving the fully managed portion and moving into our smart switch ranges, and I'm sure Mark will do a quick description of the difference between smart and fully managed switches. But we're going to be looking at the DGS 1510. Now we've got the DGS 1510 in red on there because they are still available. They are still perfectly valid options. But we are starting to move away from those more towards the DGS 1520 and the DGS 1530 range. And what you'll see is that there isn't significant amounts of differences between these ranges. So the 1510 has been traditionally our bestseller in this department, but you will be well catered for with the 1520 and the 1530 options as we move forward. So if we start off by having a quick look at the 1520 series, so these have been around for quite a while now, Mark, and they're proven to be very popular within the.
Yeah, these are 1 gigabit stackable switches. And what's the main difference between these and the new and the older generation of 1510s is that the PoE options have a couple or 4 2.5 gigabit PoE ports on there. So that's if you're looking to stack a couple of switches and you need to connect an odd access point or a Wi-Fi 7 or Wi-Fi 6 or 7 access point on there. But you don't need a full switch with a lot of 2.5 connectivity. It's just that's the main difference between these. These are, as we say, stackable layer 2 smart switches. They've got 2.5 connectivity. They come in non-PoE and PoE options, as mentioned there on the left. We've got them in 24 and 48 port in terms of spoof sizes. They've got some layer 3 features, so they do some layer 3 routing, but mainly the difference between these and the fully managed options is with a smart, they haven't got as much memory, they haven't got as much processing power, and they're designed to be a more cost-effective option.
Yeah. And that's why they sit on the edge of the network as opposed to the more management functions, because when you're talking about the aggregation layer, that's where you need the fully managed solution so you can fully manage your network. Whereas these smart switches, they do have some functionality, but obviously with them being smart, you're expecting the switch to take care of some of that functionality on its own. So
because it comes with, for a smart switch, it already comes with so much functionality. For a small to medium sized business, these type of switches will serve its purpose as a core switch without any problem whatsoever. If you're looking in terms of maximizing your returns, a smart switch like this with the 2.5 gig PoE allowing you to power the latest access points without bottlenecks to those access points, but at the same time giving you the option to manage your network and also connect to maybe managed switches further down the line. They are all great options.
I think you hit the nail on the head there when you said about the businesses, because
depending on the size.
Yeah, if you've got a business, it can depend on the size, but it can also obviously depend on what a business does. If you're continually pulling down shed loads of video, even if you are a small company, you really could benefit from having a stronger backbone to your network, kind of no matter the size of your business. But as you put down, it's all about the efficiency, what the business can afford, and what's the right solution for you. Because if you really do depend on that speed, then something like this would be appropriate, as opposed to having a lower level or going up that level to the aggregation switches, where you can get all of that extra bandwidth and capacity. DGS 1530. So this is the newest range in this series. So we launched a few series last year. The DMS 30, the DMS 3130s came out last year. DGS 1530s came out last year. So these are fairly new on the scene, but these are ostensibly in place, as you can see from all of the options on here, to make sure that all of the traditional users of the 1510 series are all covered with all of these sizes and shapes. And we've even got a version there with 10 ports on, which is quite unusual for us because we don't normally have a 10-port version of such a highly spec switch. So.
Yeah, as Adam mentioned, we've got the smaller options on there to give more flexibility for the types of products, types of projects that we can get involved with. We've got a smaller 16-port versions of the 1530-20 on there. Again, though, these smaller switches do have the 10 gigabit connectivity, meaning that they can be stacked, meaning that they can connect to other products or 10 gigabit networks via the SFP links on there. Some of the good things about them, or the 1530 series in particular, is the fact that they've got multicast and broadcast features, meaning that they could be used within IPTV installations, so things like hotels, things like
multiple screens at the same time,
where screens and video and that type of thing are needed. These can support that type of installation. The PoE options on there can also power some of these devices. So if you're thinking of digital signage, if you're thinking of screens, and obviously if the power requirements on there, you've got an all-in-one solution that can help you with that type of install.
Just to quickly mention, you know, for a switch, for a small 10-port, 20-port switch, especially for smaller business, they're able to build, you know, add very advanced functionalities, such as even ERPS, whereby you know you can create a ring to add that redundancy to your network, so that if something, you know, if one of the devices does go down, the remainder of the network continues to function. And then just to add on to the PoE point that we haven't quite touched upon is that you know, I think we all know that PoE is very, very convenient when it comes to designing a network, because it gives you power and also data down a single cable without the need to get the electrician in. But because of the management functions of these smart switches and also the management, you do also have ability to schedule PoE, for example, to turn off devices when you don't need to, both for power saving or even for security reasons, or for, you know, whatever reasons, schools having to turn off cameras when kids are around, but access points to be turned off when non-business hours are you know, during non-business hours, so that people don't to provide additional security. And also things like you know, PD Alive, which is basically the switch will detect if the device is responsive. If not, then it will automatically reboot the device to get it back online. Perpetual PoE and fast PoE to both ensure that if the switch does reboot, power continues to go down the cable to the device you're powering, or fast PoE in this case is what, you know, as soon as the switch is on, the power is down the line so that everything is up and running as quick as possible.
Fantastic. Standard smart switches. So we've kind of divided these into two different sections. So the 1500 series obviously sits above the 1200 series. It's a higher number. That's kind of how we do things. But now moving into this is your sort of everyday sort of intelligent switch, and some of our best sellers at the moment sit within this range. So starting off with D-Link's tried and tested, most favorite best-selling series, the DGS 1210. Then we have the slightly newer DXS 1210. So that will be the 10 gigabit versions of the of this series. And then we're moving into the DGS 1250. So the 1250s were introduced a little while back, and they are the cheapest range that we have that offer 10 gig SFPs. And then again, recently we launched the DMS 1250s, which is the multi-gig versions of those. So they will come with the same sort of spec as the DGS 1250s, but with 2.5 gig as the standard, keeping the 10 gig SFPs in place. So there's a lot of models on the screen at one time here, because there's a lot of different products that are coming or available now in this sort of range. So if we move on, and we can start on the DGS 1210 series. I believe I have 2 slides with all of the switches in this range on, as you can see there. So we'll go through this one, and we'll start at the very bottom. As we said there, we've got the DGS 1210, and then moving into the PoE range at the bottom there. So lots of different versions on these. So these switches are layer 2 only, because they're designed to be at the edge of your network there.
Apart from static routing, because it does provide you with with some basic layer 3 functionalities, and that is the key difference between the 1210 and the 15 and the 15, yeah, because the older DGS DXS 1210 1250 series, they provide static routing to give you some control over layer 3 traffic.
Brilliant. Okay.
I think to add this, we have one of the most extensive range of like a standard smart switches in the industry, and in terms of port configuration as well as PoE options, even just on the DGS 1210 alone, you have you have switches that support at the bottom of the screen you can see more cost-effective switch that supports lower PoE budget. And if you do need a little bit more PoE power to power more devices or more power-hungry devices, you have one that supports double the amount of PoE budgets. And this just helps, I guess, businesses, especially nowadays, especially when budget is it's on everybody's mind, and it allows you to not spend where you don't need to.
Well, the newer access points are also a little bit more power hungry as well. So your Wi-Fi 7 access point will be more power hungry than perhaps a previous generation Wi-Fi 5 access point. So that's making the max power or the MP options a little bit more popular. As you can see there again, the best-selling DGS 1210 28p with 193 watts, that's a significant amount of power coming out. But you've got 370 in the MP version, and again in the 52 MP and then the 52 MPP, you've got 370 and then 740 options there. So a lot of power here, because these edge switches, they'll be the ones that will be connecting to your access points, connecting to your cameras, and just providing the power for your sort of everyday office kind of use there. Moving on, DXS 1210. So as I said earlier, this is the 10 gigabit version of the DGS 1210 series. Again, they're switched into PoE versions, and then we have 2 fiber options at the moment. So Mark, do you want to jump in on these?
Yeah, these are the 10 gigabit versions of the of our standard smart switches. They're non-stackable products, so they come, as Alan mentioned, in different configurations. So we've got a couple of fiber variants. We've got a couple of smaller variants, for example, the 12TC and the 10MP. Why would we have smaller switches in that are 10 gigabit? Because sometimes we need to offer a cost-effective option.
Yeah.
So a business that just needs to move data from left to right as quick as possible, but as cost-effective as possible. And this is why we would offer smaller port counts. And then we've got slightly larger options there, the 28T and the 28S. One being the 28T being the copper variant of that, and the 28S being the SFP version. These are larger in terms of capacity. They've got more cost-effective options out there, but these products are designed to increase the speed of the network, or increase the speed of the devices that are connected to it. So think of companies, for example, media agencies with large files and computers, and you need to move videos or images from servers or from storage units. And this is where the application for something like the 1210, the DXS 1210 would be used.
Yeah, 100%. It's that continual traffic, even if there's only a few people in the office. So you're going for a 12 port or a 10 port variant. If you've got a number of people pulling big files at the same time, then that's when this switch really begins to shine. So if we move on to the DXS 1250, there's only one switch in this range, so we won't spend too much time talking about it. But it's a 24 10 gigabit ports and 4 25 gigabit ports. So there's a lot of power in there, and there is also a lot of power when it comes to PoE. So you've got a 470 watt power budget. But this switch range adds layer 3 functionality back into this sort of standard smart switch range. So this is kind of the highest spec one that we have in this area.
I think that the key application for this particular switch is targeted at Wi-Fi 6, Wi-Fi 7 access points.
Perfect.
High-end Wi-Fi 6, Wi-Fi 7 access points, because as you can see already, the 24 10 gig PoE ports is perfect for those to ensure that there's zero bottleneck between your wireless network and your wired network.
Perfect. Last but not least, the DGS 1250 series. As I said, these been around for a couple of years now. There's only the 4 versions in this environment, but this is basically, when you drill it down, this is basically the 1210 series with added.
Yeah, they've just got 10 gigabit SFPs to them.
Yeah.
Why would we use this type of thing? So if it's a lot of users that are connected to the switch, so you've got all the switch completely populated, and all we've done here is added the 10 gigabit SFPs on there. So when they're going back to the core or to the aggregation network layer of the network, we're just speeding up that data transfer from point A to point B, and to give users a better experience. We're just trying to speed up the data quietly in the background with the SFP ports, just to improve the transfer, the flow of information.
Perfect. And one of the latest sets we have is the DMS 1250. So these are multi-gig. Note the DMS in there. So various models there, all starting with your bog standard 2.5 gigabit ports added on. So what's the sort of differences with these as opposed to the DGS 1250s then?
So ultimately, the difference between the DMS 1250s and the DGS 1250s is the DMS 1250s are 2.5 gigabit ports. That's the predominant port on there for everyday connectivity. Why would you need that type of thing? It's just opening up them levels. It's just opening up the highways, the bandwidth, the throughput availability. So if you need a cost-effective option to start increasing your speeds for things like Wi-Fi 6, or for your users on the network, whether it be laptops or desktops, the DMS 1250 series is designed to be a cost-effective option to start reaching that multi-gigabit, that 2.5 speed. All of the switches here mentioned are 2.5 gigabit in terms of the Ethernet port on there, but they also support the 10 gigabit SFPs to go back to the core of the aggregation layer of your network. The PoE options on there, or the PoE ports on there, will support your Wi-Fi 6 and 7 access points. Some of the switches are obviously got more PoE budget than others. For example, the DMS 1250 28P has got 475 watts of overall power.
Very nice.
And that can support PoE plus and PoE plus on a certain number of ports, whereas things like the little or the smaller DMS 12TP only has 240 watts, but it is a smaller 8-port switch. With these type of things, I mean, they're obviously web-based GUIs, so we've tried to make the management of them very simple for people like Alan that aren't very technology au fait, but we can also add things like command line interface. So people with more advanced skills in there can set them up, and they can they're more comfortable with this. They also will be managed by our Nucleus Unity platform, which we will talk about in another webinar.
So it's all right. We're getting near to the unmanaged switch section, which is where Alan comes into his own.
I think when it comes to 2.5 gig, it's that, you know, if you remember back when transition from fast Ethernet to gigabit, people, I guess, you know, the day did come.
It's about time.
Yeah, I mean, the same with 2.5 gig. I think in terms of the cost of the chipsets and also the hardware out there, it's getting built more and more into computers as standards. And, and the same with the network cards for 2.5 gig. They will become more and more accessible. And with the general trend of older data and older media, all the files that we consume, it will help in terms of the speed of we access things.
And the fiber networks are improving as the day goes by, so you're going to get more put in at the base. So
I think it was great that Mark also mentioned with regard to the web because again, traditionally smart switches were known also as web smart switches because when they were first introduced,
I remember,
when they were first introduced, it was the idea behind them was that, you know, you can configure them through a web interface rather than having to configure them through a command line interface that not everyone is familiar with. But in order to add the flexibility for network engineers or people that are familiar with the command line interface, these were then introduced onto that class of smart switches. It's so similar to people that are familiar with DOS in the past. Again, this shows my age. If you are familiar with command line interface, that you can configure devices very, very quickly, even faster than web configuration. But you need to be familiar, and that is also one of the biggest difference. One of the very big differences between the DGS 12 series compared to what Alan's showing now, the DGS 1100, because these are pure web-based interface. There's no CUI on these devices.
And again, one of the choices that you have to make when it comes to these kind of switches is what sort of skills do you have in house? Would you be relying on somebody to come out and sort the command line interfaces on your fully managed switches, or do you have somebody in your business who is capable of managing these switches via the web-based interface or via, as Marcus mentioned, one of our Nucleus products, without going into any more detail on each of those, but that obviously makes network management a lot easier and gives you more control. But if we come back to the very last range of smart switches here, so these are the DGS 1100 V2 series. These are very popular when it comes to edge switches, and also quite popular for homes or small offices where you just want that sort of very basic management functions. So the ability to set up a VLAN, the ability to do all of that fairly basic stuff within a switch. So people would be buying something like this if they wanted to set up an office connection at home on one VLAN and have the home connection on a different VLAN or something.
Yeah, these are small office, home office type applications. As Alan mentioned, VLAN capable. You can do PoE scheduling on them. Things like quality of service to prioritize particular data traffic. So if you've got video or if you've got music or whatever it is on your network, you can segregate them. PoE options on there, so again, able to support Wi-Fi access points, or also say CCTV and surveillance cameras, or even smaller applications, things like door access control or other devices, telephony products, and things like that.
So a good little range of switches there. So there's the options available there, as we said, managed by the GUI, which Phil mentioned on the previous one. Just some good solutions there for a small office, home office kind of thing. Very, very cost effective and easy to manage and set up, which is music to to a lot of people's ears.
I am going to jump in on the music to your ear part. Most of another key difference between these and the DGS 1210s is that nearly all the switches in this series are fanless. I think that's something that's worth
silent
nearly all. And also these entry-level switches also come with very user-friendly modes. When it comes to things like setting up surveillance and voice VLANs, because they do support
the auto surveillance VLAN.
They support that kind of functionality, and also bandwidth control on top of the QoS. So you can easily set how much bandwidth each of the ports are using.
So even though they're the entry level, they're still great for managing cameras.
Yeah, it's very easy to set up management over your network.
Perfect. Unmanaged switches, quite a few, as you can see on there. So D-Link still has a vast range of fast Ethernet solutions. They will be our most cost-effective solutions, because even though we talk about gigabit as being the standard, or talking about moving up to multi-gigabit, a lot of homes nowadays still have less than 100 meg connections. So if you're just interested in the cheapest solution, something like our new DES1005C plastic 5-port Ethernet switch would absolutely suffice for you. Obviously not for a NAS user or a big transfer of network, or anybody who's got fiber to the premises. Then we would be talking about the DGS range of 10. So starting with the DGS 105, that's our metal version. We then have the DGS 10005D, that's our plastic version, all the way up to the 24-port DGS 1024D. And then when we move into the multi-gig selection, we've just added some new switches to this range in the last year or so. So we've got the standard 5 and 8-port versions, and we've then got a hybrid, which is the DMS 107, which offers 5 1 gigabit ports and 2 2.5 gigabit ports. So if you've only got a couple of selections there, if you just wanted to connect up your NAS at 2.5, the DMS 107 can be a very cost-effective solution. And then moving up to the two new models, we've got the 16-port and the 24-port, which are proven to be very popular, because these larger unmanaged switches for SOHO businesses, they're not as available on the market as some of the other switches are. And then if we have a quick look at the PoE versions, you've got your standard, these are all metal. Obviously, we're not going to put PoE in a plastic switch, but you go from the 5-port metal version all the way up to the 28 max power version. And we just introduced an 18-port and a 26-port version with normal PoE to coincide with the 26-port max power variant. So you can see there, the 26-port has 240 and the 26 MP has 370. And then very last from me is the new DMS 108P, which again is proving to be very popular at the moment. That is our 8-port 2.5 gigabit unmanaged switch with a 230 PoE budget. That version is proving to be very popular at the moment. So who wants to jump in and talk about this range before I move on to the next slide?
I think later on there's quite a few more slides to go into details of all the unmanaged switches available. We'll probably save you from having to go through them all, but the options are there, again, depending on, and these are, because they are unmanaged switches, they are very, very cost effective in terms of expanding your network. And as you can see on the left hand side, the highlights, they support multicast through IGMP snooping. Most of them again are fairness design, so they're perfect for placing in islands in the office or next to your where you're actually working, so that they don't disturb you.
plug and play.
Yeah,
Not energy saving. Yeah,
not so much to say that they're easy to use, cost effective, and easy to use to expand your network.
Yeah, yeah. I think the advantages, as I talk about, like the advantages of a wired network over a wireless network. But just to touch on PoE just a little bit more, because Mark's done a sterling job talking through the PoE. But what I wanted a slide just to sum up the different versions of PoE and where you should consider PoE plus and where you should consider PoE plus plus. So if you can see on the right side there, we as you've seen all the way through the presentation, we have a very wide and varied range of products available with PoE. Pardon me. So PoE as a standard offers 15.4 watts per channel max, and you're looking at the devices listed under there. As I mentioned earlier, Wi-Fi 6 and Wi-Fi 7 access points will consume more power than the Wi-Fi 5 variants. And obviously, you've got the same there when you upgrade your IP camera from Full HD to 4K to a speed dome. And when you go from having an IoT device such as a sensor all the way through to an information kiosk, which will require that little bit more power to make sure that the screen stays on. So there's just a quick summary there of the sort of devices that you're looking to install and what we would perceive as the best PoE version for you to be looking at. And obviously we offer all of those different PoE standards as Mark has been talking through as we've been doing the presentation today. Anything to add on PoE or?
Not particularly. I mean, obviously, it's all summed up there. We can help with Wi-Fi access or power to access points. We can help with CCTV access. The thing that we will say here is if you need help selecting a product or if you need help determining what PoE switch is right for you, drop us a line. We're more than happy to get involved and to understand the type of installations, the type of projects, that you're getting involved in. And we're quite happy to assist. We're quite happy to lend our expertise to ensure that the right switch for the right project, for the right installation is chosen here.
Never an issue for us. Just give us a shout. So just a little bit more detail on each of the switches. As Phil said, we knew these slides were upcoming. So starting off on the DGS10 series, I mean, it pretty much encompasses so many different switches in this range, but these are the PoE versions. So as I said previously, starting at the 5 port all the way up to the 26 MP power there. So they're all pretty much the same spec. It doesn't differ between each of them. Every port on most of these is 1 gigabit. The new variants that you can see on there, the DGS 10P and the DGS 1018P, so they're kind of replacing older models. And what they've done with these is they've added in the 2 SFP ports to make up that extra port count there on the switch. Pretty much everything in these range. So we have they will offer up to BT standard dependent on the switch model. And one of the things that we like to talk about with regards to our PoE switches is the green technology. As I think Phil mentioned briefly earlier about PoE standards, perpetual PoE, and a few bits like that. So one of the good things about these switches is that they will auto switch off if the device isn't doing that. So they are compliant with IEEE standards and qualify for our D-Link sort of green program there. So anything to add, anyone? Or
there is something that I just want to quickly add. Some of the switches in our range provide physical dip switch on them that allows you to change various functionalities without even having to access a user interface. So cool. If I am not mistaken, so here you can see on the slide DGS 1010p, 18p, and 26p has the ability to enable this extended the transmission mode up to 250 meters, so you can power and connect devices up to 250 meters.
These are the newer versions, aren't they? So that's been added to these newer ones.
Traditionally PoE, the distance is
100.
100, yeah.
Yeah.
And if I'm not mistaken, also you do also have the ability to also choose two additional. So you can the actual physical dip switch allows you to turn on and off things like flow control, port isolation to isolate each of the ports, and also what we mentioned earlier, PD and live, to enable the port to power off and on the PoE port if it senses inactivity on the port itself.
Perfect. Moving on, so just a quick summary of we won't go into this one too much because we've talked about most of these switches already today. So here's a big list of all of the different options related back to the PoE. So you can see we have so many different budgets, so many different options, and we cover all of the PoE standards. So we just wanted to bring this as kind of a summary. As you can see, there's a lot of switches on these slides. So moving on, and again, just another slide to kind of summarize the aggregation layer PoEs. So you can put you can have PoE at sort of every level of your network when it comes to working with D-Link. And as we said at the start, we do have a very extensive portfolio. And again, there with the core, there's a couple of PoE options for the core there. Last but not least, we'll be having a quick discussion about the add-ons when it comes to these kind of when it comes to switches. So we've got a quick section here on transceivers. Then we've got the redundant power supplies we've talked about, and then a couple of bits for the direct attached cables. So Mark, you're the transceiver man.
Yeah, so a lot of the switches have SFP ports on there. D-Link, we manufacture and we have a wide range of compatible SFPs. These range from things like the DEM310 GT, it's a gigabit single mode transceiver, going down to things like converters. So if you need an extra, for example, Ethernet port, the DEM410 can be a 10 gigabit Ethernet port, and it takes over one of the SFP ports to plug it in as a converter.
So those will convert your SFP ports.
Yeah,
back to,
there are different options. We do different speeds, 1, 10, and 25 gig, as well as the 100 gigabit in the multi-mode and both single modes. If you're unsure of what transceivers that you need, please feel free to sort of get in touch. We're quite happy to go through them. We're quite happy to help out with the availability or the compatibility of the transceiver, because sometimes I've had this in the past where customers have purchased a 1 gigabit switch with a 1 gigabit SFPs, and they're looking at 10 gigabit connectivity or the wrong module for the job. So we're quite happy to help with the recommendation of the transceiver or the SFP to go with the right switch. On the right-hand side of this slide, some of our larger switches, things like the DGS3130 series and some of the DMS products, they have the options to put what we call RPS or redundant power supplies in there. And what they do is give or add some level of redundancy. So if a power supply pops, these will pick up and keep going, or keep that network going until you can replace the main power supply off there. The modular power supplies in some of the larger switches, so for example, the DGS3630 series would use things like the DPS 500s, and they slot into the back of the switch, and they can be hot swapped out or swapped very relatively quickly if a power supply fails or it stops working.
And they're also there to add PoE power budget on certain models.
I was just getting to that. So certain PoE models have the ability to double
We've talked about
in case double their PoE models,
yeah.
and the RPSs do act, or they do double up as to increase that budget.
Yes, it's dual use, isn't it? So it will cover the power supply if one of them goes, or it will increase the PoE.
Again, we do say if there is questions on things like modular or redundant power supplies, please get in touch. We're quite happy to help. We're quite happy to make a recommendation. We're quite happy to look at the different options or what you guys potentially need. And then we've got a couple of accessories, things like the DPS 800, for example, or a rack mount chassis, so you can pop in to into your network. Into your cabinet and your rack, a space that you in there for your redundant power supplies.
Perfect. Just from me, just to add in, some of the transceivers are available in 10 packs, which is a great solution. If you've got multiple switches, multiple on the go, so rather than buying individual ones, you can save a bit of money with us and get 10 packs of certain variants. So that's it. But just before we end, as I mentioned on the last thing, just a little bit on the direct attach cables.
So some of the stacking switches, we offer direct attach cables, and essentially what this is are two SFP modules with a piece of fiber in the middle. What these are a cost-effective way to stack your products. They come in 1 and 3 meter variants, and things like DEM CB700 is a 7 meter variant of that. The 3 below are the QSFPs, or the faster transceivers on this. We do have the 10 gig options. We do have the 25 gig options with faster.
Nice.
But essentially what these are designed, they're built by us, and there are 2 fiber modules with a piece of cable pre-attached, pre-made, pre-bundled, and just designed to be orderable off the shelf and make life easy.
Perfect. Wow. It wasn't too damaging. I think we've stayed, or just gone over the hour mark there. So we won't keep you too much longer, and we won't go into these sort of management options and the bits and bobs. We'll be leaving that for a future webinar. I think Mark's mentioned it a couple of times, which is always good to give you guys a reminder. eu.dlink.com is our website, and you will see a live chat pop up on almost all of the pages there, which will feed you through to the sales team. So if you want to have a quick chat and one of us is available, we'll jump on. We're always monitoring that. UKI-sales@dlink.com is the best other way to get hold of us if you have any questions, any queries, anything we can help you with networks. As always, we're here to help you with your network planning and network design and all bits and bobs over here at D-Link UK. We're more than happy to take on any queries and help you out with anything that you've heard today, or any upcoming projects or requirements that you have out there. So that's everything from us. We'll probably be back in 3 to 4 weeks time for the next webinar. Subject TBC. We may be able to talk about the next iteration of Nucleus. We're hoping to have Nucleus Unity launched fairly soon, and assuming everything goes well, we'll bring you a presentation on that with a quick overview, maybe even a quick explaining video to go alongside that. So anything to add from the guys before we leave for the day?
Only from me is, please get in touch if you need some help selecting products. We are here to help. That's the sort of message I want to just share with people is, please, if you've got questions, don't sit there.
No.
And Stu, we are more than happy to get involved.
Yeah. If you need a copy of the presentation, or anything wasn't clear, the video webinar will be up on YouTube in the next day, and copies of the presentation should be PDF available for anybody who wants to review and read all of those words that we wrote on the slides for you there, just to give you a comprehensive overview. If that's everything for everyone, we'll see you next time. Thanks for joining. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.